Okay, hi everybody. Representative Joe Sosnowski here, representing both Boone County and Winnebago. We're joined by special guest Tricia Smith, State's Attorney in Boone County today. Thanks so much, Tricia, for joining us.
Thank you, Joe, for asking me to participate in this.
Yeah, no problem. You know, we've done a handful of these, and they're meant to just, hopefully there's not a lot of people that are listening to this that have been in front of your office, because that might mean they're on the wrong side. But I think, we've been able to do some of these, and we had Chief Judge Doherty on just to kind of give an inside perspective on a little bit about what's happening in the court system, and we appreciate your time being able to share a little bit about what you're working on and how your work has been affected in today's day, and some of the issues that you're dealing with. So to start though, just want to give you a minute if you'd like to share a little bit about yourself, educational background, professional background maybe.
Sure. So I grew up here in Belvidere in Boone County, so I've lived here pretty much my entire life other than being away at school. I went to college at Bradley University, and I have a degree in political science. And after Bradley, I went to the University of Iowa College of Law in Iowa City and received my law degree. After law school, I was hired by a local firm here in Belvidere and worked there for a couple of years. And then I tested for the Rockford Police Department and was hired as an officer in Rockford. And I worked there for 6 years. And then I returned to the law as an assistant state's attorney in the office that I'm currently the state's attorney of. And was there for about 2 years, and then moved into private practice again for about 6 to 8, and then came to be elected as state's attorney here in 2016. So it certainly helps being from this area, living here my entire life. And I'll have to say my experience as a police officer has given me invaluable insight into how I do my job now, not only for dealing with police officers, but dealing with the public as well.
Great. You mentioned that you were elected 2016. This wasn't really on a question I was going to ask you, but since you kind of mentioned that, would you like to make a brief comment about, how that works in your position? How long is your term? Politics, does it, enter into the position as far as philosophy and how you approach the office, or is it really just, following the law? How does that affect, I guess, your day-to-day?
Right. So some offices in Illinois are nonpartisan, and some are. The state's attorney's office happens to be a partisan race, meaning that you have to declare one party, the other party independent, etc. But overall, the philosophy, we have ethical obligations to do justice, and that is our mantra and our ethical obligation, no matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican. So we just like to make sure that we are following the law and being ethical and striving for justice. As for my election cycle, I was elected in 2016. They're 4-year terms, and so I'm up for re-election in November of this year. We follow the presidential cycle, is the easiest way to remember that. So, and all state's attorneys across Illinois also follow that same cycle. I kind of get that question sometimes as to, is Winnebago's on a different cycle than yours or something like that, but no, every state's attorney in Illinois is on that 4-year cycle.
And in that, in your position, working with other state's attorneys, with the law, is there a lot of interaction with other state's attorneys, and are you able to bounce ideas or programs and things off of your colleagues in other counties?
Absolutely. We have a state's attorney association, as well as we all use the Illinois Appellate Prosecutor's Office for appeals and training. I shouldn't say all. Cook County is excluded from there, and I think maybe DuPage, but roughly 100 other counties, state's attorneys are involved in those organizations. And it's a great resource to be able to talk to people who maybe handled a similar situation that you're going through. It's one thing I learned from being on the job is something that you never would expect, or issues that you've never heard of come up and that you're dealing with. So it's a great resource. You can email people We have trainings, usually twice a year. Obviously, in these times, we're not getting together in person as we typically do, but they're great resources, and we bounce ideas off each other all the time.
That's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So let's talk, current events. What's happening, I guess, in your job, day-to-day operations, working with the court system? Has anything changed just recently now that Illinois has entered phase 4 with the courts? Are there more cases? Can you tell us just a little bit about what the last several months have done to affect your office?
Sure, and I'll probably start at the beginning. So when we first shut down, or the governor declared his first executive order of the stay-at-home, it didn't mean that the courts completely shut down. We continued to operate on a minimal and essential basis because there are people in custody that have their constitutional rights to bond, to speedy trials, things of that nature that didn't necessarily go away with a stay-at-home order. So our business continued, but it was on a scaled back level. In addition, the officers were not making as many arrests, or if they were making arrests, they were giving more notices to appear, meaning they weren't lodging people in jail. Because one of the concerns, of course, in an environment like the Boone County Jail is you want to make sure in that enclosed space with people not maybe being able to socially distance, wear masks, et cetera, that you want to try to contain what's coming in and out of the jail. So within the 17th Judicial Circuit, we made a policy about what would be lodged and what wouldn't. Certainly any major crimes, anything violent, domestic, things of those natures continued on as normal, but maybe a driving while suspended, instead of being lodged in the Boone County Jail, would be receiving a notice to appear. So while we continued to operate, the cases really were scaled back throughout the end of March, April, into May, and finally on June 1st, the Illinois Supreme Court had issued rulings to allow us to go back to non-essential business. So since June 1st, the cases have really sort of have been back to normal, but business here in the courthouse is not normal pre-COVID. And some of those changes are, for example, our traffic call is usually a high volume call in a relatively smaller courtroom. So that court call has been moved to the Boone County Community Building located here, and it's a nice big auditorium. We have a process in place where people can sit in chairs that are spaced out. They wear masks. We have plenty of hand sanitizer. We don't reuse pens, so that people can feel safe coming to court and not feeling that they are going to be exposed in like a small, tight area. And that's really worked well, and that's set up for every Monday. As for other calls, what we've done is limited the number of people per hour or per half hour. So, for example, in felony court, we're seeing 3 people every 15 minutes, whereas before, everybody on, say, we typically do felonies on Friday morning. So there might be 50 people who have a 9 o'clock Friday morning court time. Well, now we space those out so they're in every 3 minutes. That, of course, has expanded the time that we need to be in court. So we've moved some of those to Thursday morning. So what it's done to my staff is that we're actually in court longer hours because we've had to space out cases. And actually that keeps us safe. It keeps the court staff safe, things of that nature. So we're all trying to work under these circumstances, again, to keep people the least exposure. The other thing too is that with jury trials, as you can imagine, having people in a jury room for people who have served on juries, when you first come in, you watch a movie together, and it's very tight quarters. We've limited the number of people that we've called in for jurors. Every hour we call in 14 people. And then so that picking a jury takes longer. Sitting in the courtroom is different because we have the jury out in the gallery instead of the jury box because we couldn't move the chairs in the jury box. And we actually have a closed circuit TV to another courtroom where any of the public then can watch the trial. There are some seats in the actual courtroom, but clearly with everything being spaced out, there's not as many. So we make sure that anyone who would want to see any of the jury, it's open to the public and able to do that. So those are just a few of the changes that have happened. It's cases are back to the normal number, but how we process them are a little different.
Okay. So no big backlog necessarily. You're able to kind of move things through the system. I mean, maybe not as easily, but
Right.
it's not, you're not facing, overwhelming number
Well,
of
we do
cases
have, I
stacking
will
up.
say, without having court for several months, we do have a backlog of cases that we're
Sure.
trying to work through. But I think once we'll kind of have a lag then because officers weren't writing tickets as much. So we should hopefully catch up at some point here. The other thing that we did see a spike in domestic violence cases while people were under the stay-at-home order, and those cases still needed to be processed, violations of order of protection. Those have really gone up, and those are cases that we really try to make sure that we don't delay, because those are important cases, and we try to stay on top of those and move those through the system as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Very important. It actually leads into kind of a follow-up question. You mentioned domestic violence. The total number of cases or crimes committed where there's prosecution needed. Have you seen other than domestic violence with an uptick, have you seen anything else increase? Has there been any carryover from other counties? Are you seeing from, like you mentioned, your colleagues in other counties, are other counties experiencing the same thing that you are with domestic violence, increasing a little bit, or just kind of comparable? Could you offer us some insight on that?
Well, I think it's a little early to tell the
Sure.
statistics on what's happened over the last couple months, but anecdotally, yes, my colleagues have said that there has been an increase in the domestic violence arrests and reports just that the police are responding to. As for other calls, we're just going to have to kind of, I guess, see where those numbers lead us in the
Sure.
next couple months. But I guess definitely traffic arrests are down. As for other things such as burglaries, those have kind of been down. People are more home. Retail theft, stores aren't open, things of that nature that
I was going to ask about that. Retail theft and burglary, I imagine probably in the numbers coming, we'll see them down a little bit. Hopefully a lot, but
right.
Too soon to really know, though, across the board, statistics wise. Okay.
I would say.
So moving forward, what challenges do you see? And then we talked a little bit before we started this about programs. Any new programs that you are either working on pre-COVID that are getting ready to roll out? Kind of what's in the future here for the next 6 months to a year in your office?
Sure. I think there's been a couple changes and things not anticipated by COVID. For example, it's really kind of pushed us to start using technology such as Zoom. You wouldn't necessarily think that you could run court with Zoom, but we've been allowing defendants to be able to come into the courtroom via Zoom, attorneys. And the other thing that's been, I think, will be helpful in the future is defendants who are in the Department of Corrections or in other jail facilities. We can set up Zoom now so that no one has to transport that person. And that certainly is a savings on cost to the state of Illinois,
Sure.
with the Department of Corrections, the different counties, if you're moving county to county. It's safer for everybody not to have 2 guards or 3 guards with a particular person to bring that person to court. Anything substantive that happens, for example, if someone had a trial, of course they'd be brought here. But a lot of times court cases are status dates. So we're just moving it, giving the judge an update as to how the case is moving. So that's been some progress we've seen, and I hopefully we can continue to use that in the future. Some issues that we see, of course, are, COVID's not going away. We have to make sure that we keep our staff safe, the jail staff, the defendants in the jail. We certainly don't want to get an outbreak there. It'd be similar maybe to some of the long care nursing homes, where they have people that are static and can't, obviously health conditions can be different between those 2 places, but the environment could be the same. So we're still using a lot of precautions to make sure that that does not get into our jail. And the other kind of big thing is going to be budget. And I think that's going to be everybody across the board because, as we know, sales tax are down, just the economy in general. So we're already predicting, and I'm sure in your position, you're well aware of the numbers coming in on, what the revenues are for the state of Illinois, which do come into each county. So that will be challenging as well. But I did want to mention a very positive program that we have going here in Boone County that was on pause a little bit because of COVID. It rolled out on June 1st. It's called the CORE program. And what we're doing here in Boone County is we have a program manager and a navigator, and their job is to reach out to people who have opioid addictions, other mental health issues, other substance abuse issues. It could be alcohol, marijuana, things like that, of that nature, that if they need help, these navigators can reach out to them, help them get onto, get a medical card or other resources, help them use their medical insurance to reach out to resources that they can use to get treatment. And this is a program not only for defendants in the jail. We do have them go to the jail and help people there, or people that have been, the police come out to their house for a call. It can be anyone in the general public. So if there's a family member out there, or there's someone who's watching this that has an addiction, they can reach out to the program and they can help them navigate. It can be very complicated trying to get treatment, getting to appointments. And the goal is to not only help people in the Boone County Jail or in the Boone County criminal justice system, it's to really help all members of the community and really hopefully stop people before they get to being arrested or something of that nature. And the other thing I just want to mention too is that it's going to help hopefully those calls where police go out to maybe mental health crisis, and it's not really a criminal matter, but family members calling because that person isn't taking their meds and acting out. And hopefully then this can be a resource for officers to direct family members and individuals to get this help, and again, try to avoid the criminal justice system. Of course, if an arrest needs to be made, that's what the officer's job is. There's nothing, it's not a diversion program. It's just trying to get help to people when they need it. And it is a federal grant, so there's no money coming out of the pockets of the taxpayers here in Boone County, or it's not funded by the general fund. We got a $600,000 grant that's good for 3 years, and it's also renewable. So we're really hoping to see some progress and hopefully get some people in our community that really need some help with this program.
That sounds great, and we'd love to share information about that program. So anything we can do to help. As a quick follow-up to that, you mentioned the advocates. Are those come from social service agencies in existence already? Or are these new staff folks to be able to dedicate their time just to that? How does that advocacy program work?
We have 2 full-time employees. One is she's the manager of the program, and then one is the navigator. And they both work out of the Boone County Health Department, who was very instrumental in getting this grant. And so it is their full-time job. They both have many years of experience in this type of work. They've been through probation, like Rosecrans, those type of private organizations, as well as the manager worked in the Cook County Jail for, I think, 20 years. So she has a lot of experience in dealing with this population and dealing with the problems that sometimes bring people into the criminal justice system.
Sure. So like you said, though, the goal is to advocate, help people ahead of time, high risk individuals that interact with your office or they come across. And can people, I know you'll send us some information that we'll share, do people call themselves if they need help, or can people be referred to the program?
Sure, either way. If someone sees the flyer or the information and they themselves need help, they certainly can reach out. If it's a family member and we often get calls from people saying, I don't know where else to turn. My adult daughter, son, or just is having issues and I can't seem to reach them. That would be the type of person to reach out and give them a call as well. I mean, we certainly can't force people to participate, but sometimes reaching out, it could get people maybe on the path. And they'll continue to reach out and help people follow up. Excuse me. They've actually got, in the last month, got a really good response for people that they've reached out to, and people who are surprised saying, oh, I didn't know anyone would care enough to call, particularly a person who had overdosed, and they followed up with them. I also have a support group that they're running with people that the leaders of the support group are individuals that they themselves have gone through these type of problems and how they overcame them. So that's another component that maybe help people realize there's other people that have been in their situation and they were successful and have turned their life around, from people who've actually done it. Sometimes that helps to hear from those types of people.
Great. That sounds fascinating. I'd love to follow up with you in the future, maybe a year from now, and just see the effects of that program and what you're able to see from their interaction with lots of folks. And hopefully that will be a great benefit, not just our community. And I assume there's other communities that have been able to take advantage of that. So hopefully that's something that will spread, and we'll have more availability of resources to put towards that. Because like you mentioned, if we can keep people from falling into the criminal justice system earlier on, obviously that's money well spent, especially if it's just a matter of getting them to the right resources in the
Correct.
community that are already there. Well, thanks again for your time. Again, we're with State's Attorney Tricia Smith from Boone County, and this is Representative Joe Sosnowski. Thanks for joining us. I did want to give you just a quick minute if there was anything else I didn't ask you or that you wanted to mention about what's happening. So in closing here, anything that you wanted to share?
Sure. No, I just really appreciate the opportunity to get information out there about our community and about our office and what we do here. So I appreciate the chance to do that today.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time. And I don't know how many times you get thank you letters in your office, but consider this a thank you letter from me and the folks that I represent. Your office does a great job. Obviously, you have very difficult work, but you also have to balance between the law and advocating on behalf of victims and help make our community a safer place. So I really appreciate everything that you and your office do in our community, and you serve a vital function for us. So thanks for doing that.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Sure, no problem.